Oh, you got her, dude. She's down.
Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to another Fall Obsession Podcast episode. I'm Sam with Fall Obsession, your Fall Obsession Podcast host. Thank you guys for joining us this week for another episode. Here in recent weeks, we have had some guests on our podcast where we've talked a lot about kind of some fall hunting prep, some summer scouting efforts in various parts of the country with different guests. So if you guys haven't checked out those podcasts yet, I encourage you guys to go do so. However, this week we are taking a break from that topic of discussion, and we have something else that we're going to be talking about with our guest this week. It's his first time on our Fall Obsession Podcast, and that is a very good personal friend of mine, Dustin Jeter. Dustin, welcome to Fall Obsession Podcast.
I'm glad to be here.
Happy to have you, man. Like I said, this is your first time on the podcast. You and I are no strangers to each other, though. We've known each other for the better half of a decade, and we're both firefighters in neighboring cities, so kind of came up in that world together a little bit. But I'm going to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself and steer us toward kind of what we're talking about today, with some tactical shooting and competitive firearm shooting and stuff like that. So.
Awesome. Like you said, my name is Dustin Jeter. 29 years old. Been a fireman for almost 5 years, so that's always awesome. I've been shooting competitively for probably close to 10 years now. Hunting, obviously, Sam and I enjoy that. We share that interest together. So started off hunting, and then it's kind of weird how I got to where I am, but eventually just developed into, my love now is for the tactical games. So
yeah. So a background in firearms. As long as I've known you, you've been a big gun guy, and been big into shooting. You got your own little personal range set up on a piece of property you have access to and everything, which is pretty cool. We've been out there several times together. The competitive shooting side, though, is and again, this is your world and not mine. If for our listeners, if you guys have listened for a while, you know I'm a bow guy. I'm not a gun guy. So you got a bow world and a gun world here talking to each other. But I feel like competitive shooting is kind of a big jump from just obviously, shooting for fun, if you will. And obviously in today's world, with the way ammo is, there's kind of a limit on a lot of stuff for guys personally, it seems like, unless you got stockpile. But what interested you in competitive shooting? When did you decide to make that jump from shooting for fun, enjoying it on a personal level, to actually competing?
So it actually, the same guy that got me interested in the tactical games is the same guy that got me interested in competitive shooting. So him and I, we worked together, and I'd been shooting for fun, and him and I, we shared that common interest. And one day at work, he asked me, "Hey, why don't you just come shoot a competition with me?" And I'm just like, I'd always looked at competitive shooting, but for me, I was more drawn to like the cowboy action, the lever action, the double barrel shotgun.
Yeah.
I was like, that is cool. But that wasn't what we were doing. We were doing more of a defensive style shooting. It's called IDPA. And so the first match I ever shot with him, I actually had to borrow a pistol from my father-in-law, and it was a 1911 Colt government national match. It was my wife's grandfather's gun, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So shot that match, and ever since then I was hooked. It's just the draw of like being the best shooter for accuracy and speed, and like once that buzzer goes off, it's like go time. Sam understands, firemen are usually competitive, so any kind of competitive setting, it gets us going, and that was my biggest draw to it, was the competitiveness of it and pushing myself to be a better shooter.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So how many competitions have you shot at this point?
Ooh. That's like me asking you, how many times have you hunted?
Okay.
I don't know. It's a lot. I've shot, I would say probably over 100.
Awesome.
So it's been fun. Local matches, state matches, things like that. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
So we're gonna, obviously the big one we want to hit today is the tactical games, but give me some highlights going into that, like some competitions that have stood out or been more significant milestones for you building up into the tactical games.
Yeah, so for me, the biggest thing, like I said, I got started in IDPA, which is very defensive. You have to be covered. You have to use a garment to hide your weapon, things like that, right? You have to retain your mags. It's very geared towards like concealed carry, very defensive, like it's obviously in the name, a very defensive style of shooting. So I went from that to wanting to just, they call it gaming, which is USPSA, and it's just wide open, just go as fast as you can. And then eventually started shooting 3-gun. And so all this was, as I was going through and shooting all these different matches, I started to realize where I was falling. I realized 3-gun was too expensive for me. And IDPA wasn't fun enough. It got to a point to where I was just like, yeah, this is cool, but I want something different. And so I geared more towards USPSA because it's very focused on accuracy. So where does your accuracy fall? Like, do you tailor towards speed or accuracy, or do you fall like right in the middle? And so to me, that was the closest you could be to from a stock pistol to those guys with $5,000 race guns,
Yeah.
right? So for me, I knew I could never afford a $5,000 race gun. So I was like, well, hopefully my physicality will make up for that, and it did for a long time. So from there, just started shooting USPSA, and then just like separate carbine matches, shooting clay matches, and I love shooting every platform of a firearm, really. So, but once I started shooting, it was fun. It just gets to a point to where it's like you still enjoy it, but you want something more.
You want to push it farther. Yeah.
Yes. And so that's when the same guy who got me into shooting was like, hey, I just did this thing called the tactical games. You should try it. And I looked it up, and I instantly knew I was going to be hooked. Because it's that next level to competitive shooting that and me, like I said, being a competitive person.
Yeah.
So it gives me that next drive.
Yeah, absolutely. So firearm setups, what kind of stuff are you running? Or again, we're leading into the tactical games here, and we'll get into that next, but you talk about in the past kind of what you've run, and then going into setting up for this competition, if you made any kind of adjustments or anything.
Okay. So starting out, like I told you, I shot a 1911. I shot that for the better part of a year and a half, and then went and bought my own. Still stayed in that single stack 45 division. That'll probably always be like one of my favorite guns is shooting 45s, just because it's how I started. Then went from that to shooting 9mm and a Glock. And I always tell people, they always ask me, what do you shoot? What do you shoot? And I'm like, it doesn't matter what I shoot. If you go to a range and you can just rent every gun you can find, it's what you shoot best. And for me, that was a Glock. So I started shooting a Glock 34. From there, I probably shot the Glock 34 for 6 years, 6 or 7. And I've dabbled, traded guns, owned a 2011 for a while. That's not my cup of tea. It's just, it's too finicky between the mags and the gun. I mean, it is truly a beautiful custom gun, but you got to be on point if you want that thing to run right. Where I'm at now, I ended up actually getting out of the Glock 34, and I started shooting a CZ Shadow 2.
Okay.
So hands down, it's heavier than a ton of bricks, but I love it. I love every bit of it. So that's my current US, because I still shoot USPSA. But I gear it now towards the tactical games, so I'm not worried about beating everybody. I'm worried about getting my heart rate up, getting my shots, and making it count.
Yeah.
So
awesome. So we have listeners across the entire country, and I know we have a base here in North Texas that listen, and I'm sure with you coming on, a bunch of your buddies will probably maybe tune in as well.
Yeah.
But for those who are not local or don't know you personally, what is the tactical games?
All right, so the tactical games is a mix of like a USPSA style shooting and the CrossFit games. So that's the I've sat here and I've like tried to slice and dice it and trying to be like, how do you explain it? To me, that's the only way you can. So to start out, you have a plate carrier, right? That slick with nothing on it has to be 15 pounds overweight. Okay, so you have to carry with you what you're going to use in what they call a battle, which is also considered a heat. Okay, so you have 4 battles throughout each day of events. So it's usually a 2-day event. The one I'm about to do is a 3-day event. So we'll see how that goes. But not only do you have to carry the plate carrier, all your ammo, all your mags, your belt, your pistol, your rifle. So you're running in full gear, right? 30 to 40 pounds overweight, depending upon your setup. Usually you start out doing something physical, whether it's sled drags, wheelbarrow pushes, squats, burpees, overhead presses. I mean, dude, it's all fair game. They have like a standard list of what you need to fall under parameters, and so anything outside of that, it's 100% they make up the day before, so you never know what you're getting into.
Yeah, awesome. So we talked a little bit about your weaponry at least, and then obviously hit on the interest for it, wanting to push yourself, wanting that next thing, So you found the tactical games, or your buddy turned you on to it. What did you do to prepare for it leading up to it?
So I just followed that list of parameters they had. I was like, all right, sub 9 minute mile, because I figured I'd start in intermediate. There's different divisions, right? And so this last match I shot, there was over 140 people.
Wow.
Right, between all the divisions. My division was the biggest. There was like 80.
Wow.
So I took 12th in that match. But intermediate, I was like, well, let me start here, and then if I do really good, then I'll move to elite, because everything in elite is 20% higher in either weight or rep volume. So intermediate was, for me, the biggest thing I did was I started running in full gear, right, with 30, 40 pounds overweight. At first it was not pretty. There was a lot of stopping, a lot of leg burning. Did the Stairmaster. Really, I wanted to build my legs, because I had enough, I felt like I had enough, upper body endurance for me to be able to get through whatever I needed. My biggest focus was on my legs, just building up that leg endurance, and turns out that paid over very well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the event. Let's get into this and everything, and break it down as far as what all they had set up for you guys, and what kind of stuff was challenging you, and what all you had to encounter.
Awesome. So the first event, we'll start off with what we're shooting. Usually your pistol is like probably 10 to 20 yards. I think 20 yards was my furthest shot for pistol, but it was all on a little 3x4 index card. Okay. So then every shot on rifle was either a completely unfolded piece of printer paper or folded in half, depending upon your shots. There were a few steel challenges there for rifle, but most of the time to record your shots, it was all on paper. Okay. So the first event was a sled drag. So you start at 115 pounds, and it's behind you. Okay. So you throw the toe strap they had over your shoulder, and you go 50 yards to a yoke, and then you pick up a 100-pound sandbag, and about 5 feet you have to throw it over the yoke, and then continue to drag another 50 yards to the target. From there, you load and make ready, you shoot. It was 8 rifle and 8 pistol.
Wow.
From the firing line, you have to completely dump your stuff. Each shooter has someone who's following them to make sure that they're doing all the procedures safe, right? So unload my gun, hammer down, unload my rifle, hammer down, and reholster the gun, turn around, and now you're pulling the sled you're still facing the berm, but instead of the sled being behind you, it's in front of you. So now you're pulling it backwards, throwing the bag back over, going back to the start line, throwing a 25-pound plate on. You did that for 3 revolutions.
Wow.
Three down and backs. And by the time I was done with that, I literally finished, and if I'd have stopped moving, 100% my legs would have locked. My quads were so like filled with blood. It was insane. I'm telling you, it was rough.
So that's the first thing out of the gate.
First thing out of the gate.
So
and I took 4th out of 140 people.
So
in that stage.
So first thing out of the gate, and that's what they throw at y'all. That's what you do. You finish. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts though, as you're wrapping that up, and you just, because again, it's your first time doing this.
Correct. So. My first thought was, sweet, I still got 7 more of these. And so it's like, whew, I don't know what I got myself into, but it was, and the competition wasn't even that long. And the beauty of it is, as you go to your competition, you're like walking through the bays, and you're like, oh, that looks terrible. And then you get to yours, and you're like, oh, this is gonna suck too. So it was definitely a good like gauge on what to expect for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Kind of set the stage for sure.
Yeah.
So what's next?
So next is each. I shot with 4 other dudes, and all of us, we had a number, right? We had our shooter number and then our squad number. So we had about 2 hours between events, which was much needed, okay? And our next one was, yes, it was this one. It was 45. It was a 170-pound sled without the steel, just 3 45s, and then the wheel was a 45-pound plate, right?
Oh, wow.
So I'm sitting here thinking, like, I need to get this out of my hands as fast as possible because I'm gonna book it with the sled, and then from the sled it's about 75 yards. You come around one berm, you come to the next shooting bay, you go all the way down to the end of the shooting bay, about 15 yards from the targets. I rotated my sled, dropped it, and you have to pick up what's called a Husafak stone. Okay, so it's derived from Scotland, actually. It's a 500-pound stone, and you pick it up, and you have to walk around this rock formation and set it back down where you got it, and that's how you're considered a man. Like that's the Scottish way of, yep, this guy's a man. So it's modeled after that. Thank God it was only 150 pounds instead of 500, because it wouldn't have been good. So you pick that up, you come walk to the end of the pistol bay, which, like I said, was about 75 yards. Turn around, go back, set it down, and then you shoot your pistol. And at that point, you pick your wheelbarrow back up, come all the way back to where you started in the other shooting bay, and that's where you shoot your rifle. And so each time that you got on the ground to shoot your rifle from prone, you shot strong side, weak side, strong side, weak side. And the pistol never changed. You can shoot both hands, right? So that was a total of 4 laps there and back.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So how much time in between events, or what's the transition from one to another?
Usually, so it was probably 2 to 3 hours between events.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's not like, because I'm telling you, with the workload there is, if you did them back to back to back, whew, there's no way.
Yeah, guys would be falling out.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So you show up to these things, you kind of, my understanding is you kind of have to gauge, hey, where am I gonna pace myself? Where am I gonna go all out to try and make time? There's a lot of balance in that, it seems like. So
there is. So you definitely have to, because there's another factor to it, right? You're not just working out. Okay, you're not like, oh, I need to move this wheelbarrow really quick, and then I can make up time on the Husafak stone, and then take a breather. We also have to worry about how hard am I breathing, how fast is my heart rate, how tight is my plate carrier to my chest, And because guess what you have to do after you're done? You gotta slow your breath down. You gotta try to slow your heart rate, because you still have to make your shots.
Yeah.
A miss in the tactical games is 10 seconds. So it's a hefty penalty.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. We've talked so far about all the physical side of everything, and like you just pointed out, you got to do all this and make your shots and make them count. So that's a huge factor.
Oh yeah, especially when you're making those left-handed shots and you're like, probably should have practiced this a little bit more. But you don't. And the beauty of it is, like, I consider myself a pretty good shot, like in USPSA, like, and then you get into this world and you're like, shooting when you cannot breathe is 100% different than shooting when you're like, you just come up to the line, they're like, shooter ready? You're like, yeah. Your heart's racing because you're excited. But outside of that, I always tell people in USPSA, you have to control the guy in your head that's like screaming for you to go faster, right? Shoot faster, shoot faster, shoot faster. He doesn't care about accuracy. We got to slow that guy down to be able to control the stage and shoot the way that you need to shoot. At the tactical games, that guy's not even in my head anymore. I'm just focused on breathing and fundamentals. So that way I know I'm getting my shot, because I know I'm not going to go extremely fast.
Yeah.
So it definitely is a different animal.
Yeah, absolutely. So events 1 and 2.
Yes.
Where are we going now?
So event 3 was they're trying to incorporate more of like a USPSA or like a 3-gun, like a fast shooting stage, and it was called Get to the Van. Okay, so it was very much like a 3-gun style shooting, and for people that don't know, it's 3-gun is basically 2 anywhere. That's the rule, right? Full size silhouette, just like you and me, about as wide, about as tall, and it's just 1-2, just as quick as you can get it. It doesn't matter where it hits, it's neutralized. So it was, you come to the shooting line at about 30 yards. There's 8-inch gongs, right? I draw my pistol, shoot, bing, shoot the next one, and I was fully committed, right? I knew I had that shot, and I go to jump off the line, and I didn't hear the ding, and I'm like, are you kidding me? So I have to step back, take another shot, and from there you come to the right, and there's an array of cardboard to the right, and it's like a shoot house, almost like just walls, right? So you come through, and each window gives you a target that presents to you, so you shoot it as you see it. Then from there, you present you move forward out of the shoot house, and then you go to the left side, go to the right side, engage all the targets. Then before, there's a van. There's literally like an old Astro van with the seats knocked out of it at the end of the shooting bay, and you're shooting pistol up to this point. Then you unload your mag, and you have one shot to shoot one-handed at a 4-inch plate that's 10 yards away. Boom, I hit it. So you lose 30 seconds. So it was like a advantage plate, is what they called it.
Gotcha.
So from there, you get in this van. I swear to you, it's 4 foot high. You have to load your rifle and then shoot from these windows.
Huh.
So there was 4 targets on each side, but you couldn't shoot all 4 from the same spot. So there was a lot of moving around. I cut my hand open just because of all the glass, and that van was so messed up. There were a lot of people but I mean, no one cared. It's like, we got to get it done.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of people that got hurt, but not to a point to where anybody drew out. But
yeah,
that was more of a USPSA or 3-gun style event that I was more used to.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there was no physical in that one, which was a breather.
Yeah, a little bit of a break.
Yep.
How many? It's a 2-day event, right?
Yes.
How many events per day?
4.
4. Okay.
No, I lie. First day was 4. Second day was 3.
4 and 3. Okay.
Yep.
So you got 3 events down. You got 1 to go for day number 1. How are you feeling at this point?
So after event 1, the one guy that I went with, he was shooting in my heat. I went with two buddies, but one of them is shooting in the master's class because he's over 40. And so I brought Cody, my shooting buddy, and he literally went and laid in his truck and just lifted his legs up, and I could hear him because I was 3 cars over going, and I'm like, are you okay? So that was pretty much it the whole time. It was a good little break, but your body was still so fatigued.
Yeah.
And I realized it on the next event, because the next event was a run.
Oh, man. Well, let's hear about it.
All right. So you start off, they give you, I think the shooting distances was 200 yards to 100 yards. And they had these X braces set up at 100 or 200, 175, 150, 100. And you had 2 minutes to shoot each plate twice. There were 4 plates total, so you had 8 rounds per mag. So I'm feeling confident, right? I get down there, I run to the first cross member, okay? I get down, it's about knee height, right? So I get down on one knee, I find my sight, I find the plate, and I'm like, full send. Boom, click, nothing happens. I'm like, what? So I re-rack my gun, click, nothing happens. I instantly realized I didn't seat my mag. So I tap, I rack, get back on it, bang, right? Send it to each plate. Then I run to the next cross member, and I realize those plates have been shot so much throughout the day, they're washing on the berm.
Oh, really?
So I'm trying to find these plates, and I tell the RO that's with me, I'm like, hey man, dude, I can't see the plates. He's like, shoot where you think they are.
Oh my gosh.
This is great. So I'm shooting where I think they are, and I'm hitting them. The 4th plate, get this, as I'm shooting it, it falls.
Oh.
And so I tell him, what do you want me to do? And he says, shoot as if it's there. And I'm like, free shots. So run from the 175 to the 150, continue my shots, run to the 100-yard mark. They gave us a time limit. I want to say it was a minute, 30 seconds you had to shoot it in, or they would yell at you, you're done. And you would just accept all the penalties from the misses.
Yeah.
By the time I finished and crossed the line, it was right at that moment. So from there I want to say it was about a mile and a half run around the entire shooting complex. And that's when I instantly realized like how truly fatigued my legs were.
Yeah.
Because I got my mile time to around 7:24 like dry, and then right around 8 minutes with full kit. And 8 minutes in full kit wasn't happening. I was like, I just kept telling myself, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other, long strides, long strides, long strides. Because I'm telling you, man, I wanted to stop running so bad.
Yeah.
But after that, I come running around the berm, and then I stop. And I'm like, whew, because I thought time ended there. And my wife's like, you have to touch the table. And I'm like, oh no. So I started running again. So it was probably a 5-second little thing, but no big deal.
Yeah. So that concludes
The day.
Day one.
Day one.
Okay. So getting back out there for day 2, how hard was that?
Ooh. It was, so I knew, especially after the event, I was like, I have to take an ice bath, because otherwise I'm going to be so sore tomorrow, it's going to be insane. So that's exactly what I did. Went and bought some ice, threw it in a tub, filled it up, took a deep breath, and just sat in there. I mean, it was terrible. I love cold showers, but not that cold.
Yeah.
And so doing that, I think, really help stop the buildup of lactic acid in my muscles. And so after that, plus foam rolling and stretching, and I had a massage gun, I felt pretty good for day 2. I was sore, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I wasn't like seized up anywhere.
Yeah.
So going into day 2, I felt pretty confident.
Yeah.
You know, in all honesty, the crazy thing is, versus USPSA, is like, I don't know. You don't know how other people are shooting, right? You don't know how other people are doing physically. You can watch them in between your heats, but you don't know. So whereas I could, in USPSA, play mind games with other people to try to get them to shoot at my level, and then I bring it back down and beat them that way, you can't do that in the tactical games.
Yeah.
It's all you, and you have to gauge whether you go all out and save some in the tank, or you just try to pace yourself. So it's really all on you, and how fast you shoot it and how fast you go, and you will decide your score.
Gotcha. So just to clarify too, I know we kind of touched on it briefly at the beginning, but as far as scoring and placing and stuff, you guys are going off of times, and then based on just hits or misses, they're taking or adding time basically to it. Like if you have a miss, they're adding time. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, so all your seconds, everything will be converted to seconds, right? Your time of 5 minutes and 58 seconds, right, will be converted to whatever that is in seconds,
right?
358, I think it is. And so your misses, say you have 100, or you have 10 misses at 10 seconds, right? So that's 100 seconds.
Gotcha.
So then that tallies to a score, and everybody's ranked on that score.
Gotcha.
And so whoever got first place, then it's all converted to percentages. He's 100%, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next shooter is 99.5%. And so that's how it's ranked. It's all ranked off of everything being converted to seconds and added up for a total score.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and you just said you don't know what other guys are doing after day 1, where you're sitting or where anybody else is sitting necessarily.
No. Like, my goal was to finish in the top 50%, and
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to do that.
Really?
So, yes.
Was anybody falling out or anybody smoking you or anything like that?
No. Every event that we had, I finished first on our team, but that's because I made a conscious decision. I'm not letting anybody beat me on my team. There was definitely different styles, that you could see. There was one kid who actually made me push myself even more. Was 17 years old. He had lost 80 pounds to come to this event, right?
Wow.
Just played Call of Duty all day, and he was like, I'm done with it. And so his family was there, and they were all just extremely awesome. And his mom ended up talking to my wife, and she said his name was Joey, right? They screamed his names 100 times through each event. That's why I know it. And his mom said, he said that he wants to be just like your husband. He said, just compliment me. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so after I heard that, him and I were talking, and I was trying to give him tidbits, because he would, this is what you don't want to do, right? He would come out the gate and he'd be beating me, right? But I know from doing CrossFit for a couple years that you got to pace yourself.
Yeah.
So he would come out the gate strong and heavy, and I'm like, slow down, young buck, because you ain't going to make it.
Yeah.
Sure enough, drop down, and he would finish usually about third, the middle of the pack.
Gotcha.
And so that's, yeah.
Cool. So day number 2, where do we start?
Day number 2, the worst day ever. So we start off, one thing that I did before I did go was I did a skirmish. So it's a half tactical games. It's 4 events in one day. There's no breaks in between.
Okay.
That's why I'm telling you it would be miserable. My grip was shot after the 3rd event of the skirmish that I did.
Yeah.
So I knew going into it, I needed to work on my grip strength. It had helped me through day 1, right? Day 2 was farmer carries at 150, I think it was 150 pounds each hand, to a yoke where you did a sandbag toss over. It was 50 pounds. Then you pick up the farmer carries, go to the shooting line, and shoot. The first one was freehand, right? Just shoot any way you want to, rifle and pistol. The next one was strong hand.
Okay.
And then the next shooting one was weak hand.
Okay.
And then again, strong hand, or again, 2 hands. Then you went from the rifle. No, that was on the next event. The rifle was the same thing. Strong, weak, strong, weak. From there, each time that you went to you approached the yoke with the farmer carries, you had to double your sandbag throws. So, right, you start off at 1. When you go to the shooting line, come back, it's 2. Then you go back down, come back, it's 4.
Okay.
Go down, come back, it's 8.
Okay.
So each time it's doubling. Right?
Gotcha.
And as I'm doing it, I'm throwing it, I realize I cinched my vest down way too tight because I'm trying to breathe, and I'm not about to lift all my stuff up, reset my cummerbund. I'm not doing it. So as I'm throwing this bag over, it literally blows open. And I'm sitting here like, I look at the guy and I'm like, you want me to keep throwing this thing? Because I will. And he says, hold on a second. So he gets me a new bag. I continue to throw it. And as I'm coming down from my last shooting array, right, coming down, I reach the yoke. We all timed out. 12 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There was only 4 dudes that didn't time out in that event. And it was, I'm telling you, it was, every bit of it was terribly rough.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that was the hardest event that I did.
Gotcha. Wow. Okay. So event number 1, and we're at this point. Are you thinking, man, you just said this is the hardest one yet. Are you just thinking that it's going to keep escalating from here? Are you doubting that at all, or?
Yeah, it was kind of in a weird situation because, like, my buddy who was shooting the master's class, he shot our first 2 stages last. That sounds terrible to me. So me and Cody, we shot the worst 2 stages for each day first.
Okay.
So part of me was like, all right, yeah, this is the best case scenario.
Yeah.
I don't want to be smoked when I get to these.
Right.
I'd rather just die in the morning, and then progressively everything gets what I would call easier, but I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, no, it makes sense for sure. So what's event number 2, day 2?
All right, event number 2 is we're in a 50-yard bay, 50 to 75 yards, and it's a sandbag. Okay, it's 70 pounds. So we're facing the berm, right? We're all facing west, and the goal is to take that sandbag and you throw it each time, right? Standing sideways, you throw it till you get to the shooting platform. You go up, you shoot pistol. Like everything, like I said, is on a index card, and then this one was a folded piece of paper for rifle. So you're shooting pistol, and on this one again, you're going primary, 2 hands, primary hand, weak hand. Okay, and then the 4th one I'll tell you when we get to it. Then from rifle, you're shooting standing, kneeling with your butt not touching your foot, to sitting, to prone.
Okay.
Or no, not to prone. It's the worst.
Okay, we'll get there.
So you throw facing west. You have to continue to face west, and you throw the other way, right? So you're working each shoulder, you're throwing each bag, and going into it, I'm watching these guys, and I made the conscious decision, I'm going to throw that bag as far as I can every time I touch it. I'm not going to sit here and lollygag and barely chunk this thing. So as I'm throwing this bag, one of the guys was telling me, you throw that thing 10 yards every time you touch it. I said, that's the point.
Yeah.
So throw down right, shoot my array, throw back. I'm ahead of the pack. Throw back down, shoot my array, throw back, right? And I'm pacing myself. I probably should have pushed this one a little harder, and that's why looking back, I was like, I probably could have done better than 12th because, you never know what to expect. It was my first one,
Right.
So I probably could have pushed this one a little harder because I didn't really run between my throws, and I should have. So throw back, come down. So on the fourth one, right, you went down, shot 3 times. You come back, you can't drop the sandbag now. Okay, you gotta throw it on your shoulder, and if you drop it, it's a stage DQ, which means you're out.
Yeah.
So you got it on your shoulder along with all the other weight that you have. So now you have to pull your pistol, load your pistol, shoot with this thing on your shoulder, clear your pistol, somehow sling your rifle around, shoot your rifle, unload everything, and then run back across the finish line. So that was interesting, especially when I finished and I was watching everybody else do it. I was like, okay, it sucked for them as much as it did for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, that's crazy.
Oh yeah.
So that's event 2.
Yep.
So you got one more, the grand finale, I guess. What we got?
So the last one was, we had barricades, and each one of us shot from a barricade. And the shot was 100 yards. I was like, okay, this won't be too bad. So from the barricade line, you had to run through the pistol bay, around to the other pistol bay. It was about 300 yards. Come back, and there were numbered ports that you shot through. So there were 3 ports. And so you shoot through the first port. It's a nice 4x4 up and square, right? You're like, oh yeah, this is cake. I'm shooting a red dot on my rifle. 2 MOA was a Vortex Spark AR. Shout out to Vortex. I love that. Shooting it, and we're shooting a piece of paper, printer paper, right? But that dot covers it up every time. Boom, boom, boom. So I'm like, I hope I'm getting my hits, timing my breathing, shooting. Unload your mag, start running again, right? You do that 3 times, and each time you get to a different port, the port either gets smaller or it gets awkward. So the second port it went from 4x4 to like a 2x2 to like a 1x6, but it was slanted. So you have to, with your plate carrier on, it's already weird shooting rifle. It's something that you have to get acclimated to. And so now you're turning your gun even more and then shooting. And then you have to pick up all your mags and cross the finish line, right? So me and this dude finished at the exact same time. He told me, I'm not letting you beat me. I said, we'll see. And on this event, at the beginning, I realized I wanted to play mind games on this one because I love doing that. And I was like, hey, are you guys jogging? I was like, it's the last event, it's no big deal. And they're like, yeah, we'll do a light jog. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. So right as the buzzer goes off, I'm like full sprinting. And they don't say it, but you see them like look around, and then they start full sprinting. I'm like, suckers. So it was pretty fun. It was awesome. They hated me after that.
A lot of competitive and some banter, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, there always is.
That's fun. So you wrap it up.
Yep.
How are we feeling?
Like I said, top 50%, I was a happy camper, right? Because for me, my shooting could have been better, my athletic performance could have been better, but for me, the biggest part of this was a gauge to see how I do on the next one, right? Like a template.
Yeah.
So we waited around for a little bit, obviously drinking plenty of water, and because they tally all the scores themselves. They don't do it usually. Like when you go to a sanctioned match, they'll have like iPads or Amazon Fire tablets, and they're calculating the scores as you're shooting.
Yeah.
Right? No, they have scores and everything's wrote down on paper, so they're tallying up all the scores, and we're waiting. So everything comes out. Obviously, I didn't win, which is okay. I knew I wouldn't. But when I saw my name on 12th in my division, I was like, they got these numbers way wrong. I think I was 12th in my division and 26th overall out of everybody. Yeah. So I was extremely happy with my performance. But also at the same time, being the competitive person that I am, I was like, if I'd have just pushed it a little bit harder, you know? So no, it was a great gauge for me to see where I need to be. Especially because at that point from the first battle, I knew I was hooked. Mm-hmm. So I knew all I was going to do is all my shooting stuff was going to gear me for this point.
Yeah. Awesome. So as we kind of transition to wrapping our conversation up, I had a few things I wanted to mention or ask, if you will. And the first thing is expectations versus reality. I think at certain parts in our conversation you've generalized some stuff, but as a whole, this is your first time doing this. So what you thought it was going to be, and like you were talking about what you were doing to prepare for it versus what it ended up being, how did those compare?
So I thought it was going to be more body weight stuff. I didn't think things were going to be, they were going to be creative and picking up the 100-pound bag and throwing it over a yoke. I didn't know what to expect in that regard. I thought it was going to be more like running, maybe like a barbell that you had to zerker carry right on your forearms and run across a line, overhead carries, wheelbarrows, things like that. But once I got there and I realized how much thought and how much time they spent into all these stages, I was like, my expectation was, like a early inception CrossFit games, right?
Mm-hmm.
So things weren't as developed. So the tactical games, I'm pretty sure, is only like 2 or 3 years old. So to them, I mean, they're still early.
Yeah.
And when I got there and I realized how much thought I went into it, all the sponsors that were there that I didn't know were going to be there, and it was just, and on top of that, the people there are different. You always run into different people at different matches that you go to, right? You have the guy who is like the best. You have a dude who's usually the loudest, and then you have a bunch of people that are quiet, or usually there's cliques, At these events, it's not that way. You can walk up and you can talk to anybody. Everybody's super awesome, super open. Dudes will come up and ask you how you did. Dudes will give you tips and advice on how to do that better next time. And in all honesty, the professionalism there is just insane. And that wasn't even on my expectation list.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got there and realized that, I was blown away, reality wise, So expectation was more body weight stuff, a little bit of weights. Reality, a lot of weights, no body weight stuff.
Yeah.
So that was awesome.
Well, that's kind of a good segue into my next question. And you've talked about the event that was the most challenging and everything for you, but not necessarily an event or a task, but what was the most challenging factor of the whole thing for you personally?
I'd have to say the pushing yourself, like really getting a gauge, just trying to be able to figure out how hard you have to push it. That's the hardest thing to do. The reason being is because you can give too much or you cannot give enough, and that will directly affect where you place.
Yeah.
So your physical endurance isn't going to help you win. Your ability to shoot really well isn't going to help you win. You have to have both. And so to find that line, with it being my first one, that was 100% the most challenging thing.
Yeah.
I think I've got a better gauge on it now after shooting one, but that's to be determined.
Yeah. So, flip side, what's your favorite part or factor of the whole thing? Thing you enjoy the most? My
favorite part is I like being able to overcome things. I have a fear of heights. I'm on a truck. I'm on a truck company with a ladder.
Yeah.
And when we go all the way up, my grip gets a little tighter, and I'm like, whoo, but I'm still going to do the job, right? I'm still going to overcome that challenge. And so for me, that's all it's been. That's been my favorite thing throughout life, right? Is overcoming the challenges as they present themselves, no matter how hard they are.
Yeah.
And pushing through that pain, especially so at one specific spot on the Husaflex carry, I was about to drop it, right? And I'm like, I'm smoked. I'm tired of carrying this thing, and there's an RO at the end. He's waiting for me to get there, and I'm 20 yards away. And I look at him, I say, tell me I'm being a baby. And I'm being PG-13 here, right? I said, tell me I'm being a sissy. He's like, what? I said, call me a sissy. Tell me I suck. Tell me I'm not going to make it. And so he starts like awkwardly screaming, you're not going to make it. And so I'm trying to like push myself. I'm trying to grab at every ounce of just anything that I can to help me get through it. And so being able to push through that is the best part. It's like runner's high, I guess. It's just amazing. That's hands down my favorite part.
Yeah. So when's the next one?
November. So it's actually, so each year they have a nationals match, right? And anybody who were placed in the top 3 in elite through any division can go and they shoot nationals, right? The best against the best. That is the true tactical games, right?
Yeah.
Or the true CrossFit games, where it's the best against the best from all over the world, or the U.S. And they opened an intermediate division because I'm not shooting elite yet. I haven't won anything, so I couldn't shoot that match period in the story. So my goal was to shoot next March, have a full year to prepare for it, and then I saw this one open in November that they're allowing intermediate division to shoot at the games,
Okay.
at the nationals. So I was like, let's go ahead and do it. I was like, even if I win, yeah, I'll feel like it's pretty irrelevant because I'm there with the best of the best, and I'm in the intermediate division winning a trophy against all these bad A dudes, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. That's even if I win. I probably won't. You know, I'm gonna give it everything I have, and I'm gonna fix all the things that I did from my first match. But the goal is to always win.
Yeah.
Right? So at the gym at my station, I have 12th written on the mirror, so I can see that every time I work out, because that's what motivates me. I wanna win. I wanna make it. I wanna earn my right to the elite division, and I feel like the only way I'll earn my right there is to win intermediate. So I'm doing that for myself, because
Yeah.
I could join elite. It costs the same, right?
Yeah.
But I want to earn my way there, and
Right.
then hopefully win gold in elite, and then go to nationals and see how that goes.
Yeah. So that one November, where's it at?
It is down by Austin.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you the exact city, but I know it's by Austin.
Okay.
So not too far. The one I shot in March was in a city next to Georgetown, Florence, I think is
Okay.
where it was.
So you've done this, you know what all's involved, you know the mental game and the physicalities that are entailed with doing something like this. What are you going to do, if anything, different to prepare for the next one?
So whereas I thought I had a year to get ready, so I started this program. I wanted to get stronger, because I know if I can get stronger, that 150 pounds that took me 80% of my physical endurance to move, it'll be 60% next time, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, build strength, and then probably about 3 months out was going to be my deadline, but I wanted to get about 4 or 5, start working on cardio, running again, get my muscular endurance back up from building strength. Then once this popped up, that kind of punched that in the face.
Yeah.
And so I've got a little bit of time, so my big thing is just I'm doing both. So work out twice a day, have a rest day once a week, and I'm going from strength training to cardio. Usually I hit the Stairmaster for 30 minutes, and my biggest thing is I need to fatigue my legs and run, because I've realized that running on fresh legs is different than like that first event, or that first day,
100%.
fourth event, running on fatigued legs.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I'm definitely going to change. But who's to say we're even going to run in this next event? I don't know.
You don't know.
Nope. So build strength, work on muscular endurance, pray for the best.
There you go. Well, buddy, I really appreciate you coming on this week and talking with us about this, because this is not really any kind of content or anything that we've ever had in our podcast, and it's just kind of it's a unique deal that you've gotten to do here and participate in, and you're a motivated individual who's going to keep pushing to do it. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing a story about it and everything with us.
Of course, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Before we let it go, we have some questions we ask all first-timers to the podcast in closing, so I'm going to hit you with those real quick. They're not, one of them's kind of centered around the topic of discussion. We're kind of switching gears a little bit back to hunting a little bit with these questions, because we're primarily a hunting podcast. But so the first one that I have for you is, what's your favorite hunting memory and why? Tell us about it.
So I have a couple, but I have one in particular that's my favorite, because it's who I'm with, and I guess kind of what we did.
Yeah.
So I never grew up hunting, never grew up around guns, right? I met my wife when I was 15. Okay, we grew up together, but we started dating when I was 15, because my mom and her mom are best friends. So her dad started taking me hunting once he realized, her and I were pretty serious, and we started shooting together, and that's where truly my love for everything that I do now came from.
Yeah.
So him and I were hunting one day, and we're sitting in a blind, we're waiting. He's over there sucking the ceiling tiles down, and I'm just sitting there like, just so ready to shoot something, right? Because I'd never killed anything before, and animal-wise. And so I'm getting antsy, and he's like, hey, let's just walk and see if we can see anything. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we're walking, and I'm shooting a 30-06 that he gave me as a wedding present.
Wow.
And so we walk through the bottom of a creek, and we come out the top, and I don't see anything, and he stops me. He says, shh. And I'm like, what? And he shows me there's a buck, and he's sitting about 300 yards away. And I'm like, whoo-wee, it's my moment, baby. And so he's like, look through your scope and tell me if you think he's legal. And then he's looking through his, and he's like, oh yeah, he's good. And so I look through my scope, and I see his, I can't even, I'm like shaking. I'm like, dude, calm down. I knew I would always meet this moment, and everyone talks about buck fever.
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to slow my heart rate, trying to breathe. And this is going to be, I don't think I've really ever told anybody this. So,
Okay.
so I'm like, I'm standing there with my 30-06, and I try to cinch it down, get it to where I can stop shaking as much. And so I start leaning against a tree, and I go to shoot, right? And I'm like, I pull the trigger and nothing happens. And I realize I didn't take the safety off. And I'm like, thank God, because I literally flinched so hard. I would have shot the dirt like probably 20 yards in front of him. So I'm like, okay, that was a gift from God.
Yeah.
So I click the safety off. I rest on the tree. I start taking a couple deep breaths, right? And so, boom, and I drop him. And I'm just sitting there like, just so excited. You know, it was my first buck. I was with my father-in-law who was teaching me all this stuff, and so it was a special moment for me. And then I see him get up, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And he jumps about 10 yards and then falls over. So we wait a little bit. We go up there. Dude, I drilled him right in his heart.
Awesome.
So once we got him, I was like, that was probably the most special moment I've ever had with my father-in-law. So that's my favorite hunting memory.
That's awesome right there. All right, second question I have. You have any bucket list hunts that you'd like to go on in your lifetime? Anything that really stands out?
I believe it or not, I actually really enjoy hunting birds.
Yeah.
So I've been on a pheasant hunt in the Panhandle. Then I went hunting. We went and we did a crane hunt last year. So it'll never happen. I'm aware of it. But those dove hunts that they talk about doing down in, is it Argentina?
Argentina, yeah.
Yeah, that would be hands down the coolest thing ever. Shooting till, I couldn't drink coffee with my right hand because my shoulder is so sore. That would be awesome. Of course, there's 1,000 things I'd like to do, but bird hunting is probably one of my favorite things.
That's awesome. That's not one, not that it's wrong and by any means, it's just not one you hear very often. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So that'd be awesome. All right, third and final question, and then we'll wrap it up. We've talked, obviously about the tactical games today, and a lot of stuff involved with that, a lot of mental game and everything, physicality. If we have listeners who shoot for fun and they're wanting to make that transition to competitive shooting, what advice do you have for them, or really anybody that's doing competitive shooting?
The biggest piece of advice I'd have is, which there's multiple pieces I'm probably going to give you, is you don't have to have the latest and greatest to come shoot, right? I've shot competitions with a dude who, I kid you not, was shooting a bolt gun. A 308 bolt gun. He got last place. And usually at like some events, they give you like a little gong, like a last place. You did so good, right? And so you don't have to have the best thing out there to come shoot. The biggest thing you can do is take a class, buy ammo, and practice at home. Okay, the majority of everything you do, if you want to get good at something, what do you always do? You practice it, right? You practice it outside the moment of doing it.
Right.
Same thing with shooting, man. You have to put in the time at home with being safe and dry fire and getting used to every bit of breaking down your draw, finding your sights, and creating that relationship with your trigger, so that'll all help you be better. But the biggest thing I can tell people is take a class on fundamentals. It'll pay off 10 times in the long run, because instead of creating bad habits, you'll start off early, you'll fix them, and it'll make you a better shooter.
Yeah.
So don't go out there and just spend $3,000 on a pistol and think that you're going to be the best thing there ever was, because those dudes are out there running $5,000 pistols, and I'll smoke them every day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah, comes down to the foundation, the fundamentals.
Oh yeah, and don't hesitate to go to look up local matches. I guarantee you, shooting range in your area shoots some kind of form of pistol, rimfire, right? Every place shoots rimfire.
Yeah.
Competitions. Get started in that to get your feel for it.
Yeah.
You know, get your feet wet, do it safely, and if you have questions, usually the shooting community is the most open and honest and willing to help community there is. So if you have a question, ask anybody, and I guarantee you they'll be willing to help you.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, man, again, I appreciate you coming on for our podcast and joining me talking about this. I know you mentioned your buddy Cody and everything. I know that there's an Instagram page where you guys have posted some of your videos and stuff before. You want to give that a shout out real quick so people can go look it up if they want to?
Yes. So my buddy, he runs his side business, right? Because he's a fireman too in South Lake, and it's Armor Division, and so you can basically buy anything. Everything I have, most of the things I have or I shoot with or is on my kit, I get through Cody. So yeah, shout out to Cody Pearson, Armor Division.
There you go.
So, and shout out to Fall Obsession.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, guys, go check out Armor Division. They got an Instagram page, and Cody and Dustin have posted some of their videos, especially some from the tactical games on there, so you guys can go follow them and check out Cody's site as well. Armor Division. Is it armordivision.com? Is that all it is, or?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Go check that out, guys. And if you haven't already, hit that follow and subscribe button on whatever podcast app you guys are listening on. We are on all major podcast platforms, YouTube, and our website, fallobsession.com. That website is our hub. That's where you can find all of our content, video series, wild game recipes, educational articles, product reviews. We got it all on there, including our podcast. So go check us out. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Subscribe to our YouTube. We're putting out new video content every week related to hunting and the outdoors. Again, we're normally a hunting podcast and a hunting media production company is what we are, but every once in a while we take a little break and talk about some stuff that's not normally up our normal alley of content. So it's been a good discussion here today. So appreciate it, Dustin. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank y'all, man. It was awesome.
All right, guys. We'll catch you guys again next week for another Fall Obsession podcast episode.